Hi YouTube, this is Shru. Welcome to the third episode of the Read for Elderly project. Today, I've decided to pick up a new book. This book is called the Mahabharata Stories by Deepa Agarwal from the House of Harper. I bought this book a couple years ago when I was attending a TED talk at my university. Shall we get started? The first chapter talks about how the Mahabharata was written. Vyasa sat under the shade of a great banyan tree. It was a hot, still day. The air was so oppressive that even the birds who nestled in the trees were silent. The learned sage was silent too. He was an impressive sight, with his flowing white beard and the thick knot of hair crowning his head. The strings of enormous Rudraksh beads that hung around his neck and were wound around his forearms, and his saffron robes marked him as a man of religion. His disciples were ranged around him. Young men, some mere boys with shaved heads on which the tufts of their shikhas or the top nets were prominent. Their eyes were fixed on their guru. Some looked puzzled, others anxious of Vyasa to begin the day's lessons. But the sage's mind seemed elsewhere. His large hypnotic eyes gazed unseeingly into the distance, and his wide brow was furrowed with lines of worry. The disciples glanced at each other questioningly, but the sage continued to be preoccupied. All of a sudden, he nodded slowly and a faint smile flitted across his face. He seemed to have found a solution to his problem. It was a naughty one indeed. It had weighed on his mind night and day, disturbing his sleep at night and his concentration during the day. Vyasa, known as Krishna Dvaipayana, because of his dark skin and the fact that he had been born on a dweep or island, was the son of Maharshi Parashar and the fisher girl Satyavati. He was also called Vedvyasa because he had divided the Vedas and organized the Vedic hymns. A man blessed with great knowledge, Vyasa had been granted a vision by Brahma the creator himself. This vision led Vyasa to compose a vast, epic, a great heroic poem. When the poem was complete, who should turn up but the travelling sage Narad? Narayana, Narayana, he greeted Vyasa, strumming the tambura that he always carried. Narayana, Narayana, Narad Muni. Vyasa replied enthusiastically, You have arrived at a very auspicious time. Please lend an ear to my new creation. And without waiting for an answer, Vyasa began to recite. His great work in his sonorous voice, all 18,000 slokas, verses of it. It took a few days, but time was under the control of the great sages. The rigorous penances they had undergone had given them special powers. Hence, days felt like hours to them. Narayana, Narayana, what an extraordinary work! Exclaimed the advisor of the gods when Vyasa was done. It is magnificent, Vyasa. Unique. But you must write it down. That way it can reach all mankind. There is so much in it that will be of benefit to them. Why shouldn't I just teach to my disciples? Vyasa replied. They will recite it at gatherings in different places and people will hear it. Thus it will spread throughout the world. Teach your disciples, definitely, Narad agreed. But writing will give it not only permanence but also accuracy. No matter how good a person's memory might be, it can play tricks. Some important parts might be forgotten or distorted in the retelling. It is an enormous work, Narad. Vyasa objected. Who will be able to take it down completely? Is there anyone who will be equal to the task? Narad clicked the kartal he always carried impatiently. He rose, ready to be off again. That is a problem you will have to solve yourself, Vyasa, he said, wheezing off on his magical self propelling slippers. This was indeed the problem that had been preoccupying Vyasa, who was capable of writing down his immense work. And then a thought flashed across his mind. Who could advise him better than Lord Brahma? After all, Lord Brahma was the one who had granted him the inspiration to compose this epic. The thought had barely taken shape when the benign form of Brahma appeared before him. His prayer had been answered. Vyasa hurriedly got to his feet. He folded his hands and bowed low before the Creator. His disciples followed suit immediately. Brahma raised his hand in blessing. Then he sat down. "Come sit beside me, boys," he said kindly. "What is bothering you so much, Vyasa? You look extremely worried." "You inspired me to write a great poem, Lord," Vyasa began. "So I did," Brahma nodded. "Is it complete now? What all have you included in it?" "It contains everything possible," Vyasa replied. "It tells of the past, present, and future. It describes all the mysteries of life like fear and disease, death and decay." Brahma nodded again, smiling. "That's excellent," he said. "Have you put anything about your great work, the Vedas?" "Yes, Lord," Vyasa replied. "I have explained in brief the philosophy of the Vedas and the Upanishads. Also, I have brought in the dimensions of heavenly bodies like the stars and planets." "What about the rules of conduct?" Brahma wrinkled his brow. "I hope you haven't forgotten that. You know how important dharma is for the world to run smoothly." "No, I haven't," Vyasa said. "I have set down all the rules of conduct, not only for the four castes, but also for ascetics. I have also described the four yugas or epochs, and the science and the healing of sickness have been included too." Vyasa stopped to think for a moment. "I have also given a definition of charity and how it should be practiced." Lord Brahma's interrogation did not stop there. "And what about the subject of reincarnation?" he asked. "That is discussed in my work too," was Vyasa's prompt reply. "What else have you put into this vast work?" was Brahma's next query. "I have described the mountains and rivers, forests and lakes, and all the places of pilgrimage. Even the art of war is explained in detail. Different nations of the world, their languages, the qualities of their people find mention too. Not to forget the spirit of humanity that pervades all." Vyasa paused to draw breath. Then his brow darkened with anxiety. "I have not left anything important out, Lord, but I am faced with a serious problem now. Who in this world possesses the ability to pen down this enormous composition? I am extremely pleased with what you have accomplished, Vyasa. It sounds like the greatest work in all creation." Brahma beamed, immensely pleased. "I don't think any other poem composed can possibly be its equal. You want someone to put it into writing, you say? Who could be better than Ganesha? He's the most intent listener. Why don't you ask him?" Vyasa's face lit up as if touched by the first rays of the sun. Brahma's suggestion was excellent. Ganesha would be the ideal person. "Many thanks, Lord, for your blessed guidance." Vyasa folded his hands and bowed low in gratitude. "You have given me sound advice as always. I shall ask Ganesha." Vyasa immediately began to make preparations to welcome Lord Ganesha. He set out a platter piled with the elephant-headed god's favorite sweet, modak. He heaped another platter with fruit. Then he began to pray fervently to Ganesha, the god who had the power to remove all obstacles. and soon his prayers were answered. Ganesha appeared riding his mouse, Mushak. Vyasa bent low in greeting. Greetings to you too, learned sage, Ganesha replied. Why have you summoned me today? What is it that you wish from me? You have come a long way, Lord, Vyasa replied. Please refresh yourself first. Try these modaks. I know you love them. Ganesha smiled. You are a man after my heart. You think of everything. After Ganesha had demolished half of the modaks and was rubbing his belly contentedly, Vyasa made his request in the politest of voices. My lord, there is something I wish to share with you. I have composed a vast poem, which I have titled Jaya. All humanity will gain much benefit from the knowledge of this work for generations to come. It sounds like a great work, but how can I help you? Ganesha asked. The poem is complete in my mind, but to preserve it in its original form, I need someone to write it down as I recite it. Lord Brahma said you would be the right person, Vyasa said, looking at Ganesha hopefully. Ganesha nodded slowly. He said. Then a mischievous smile hovered at the corner of his mouth. It will be a pleasure to take down such an extraordinary poem. Only you will have to agree to a certain condition. A condition? Vyasa was somewhat perplexed. Why a condition? Suppose he was unable to fulfill it? But then, who could be better scribe than Ganesha himself? There was no harm in finding out what he wanted. As you wish, Lord, Vyasa replied diplomatically. Please tell me what it is. It is a small thing for a person of your intellectual caliber, Ganesha smiled again. But if you do not comply with it, I won't write. He paused to take in Vyasa's expression, then continued. While you are reciting, you must not pause at all. My pen must not halt while I write, not for a single minute. If you are sure you can manage it, I agree to take on the role of your scribe. Vyasa chewed his lips for a moment, thinking. The poem was more or less complete in his mind, but it would be impossible to rattle off such an enormous work without pausing to think even for 1 minute. He glanced at Ganesha and caught the gleam of challenge in his eyes. He had to meet the condition, whatever it took. But was there some way he could reduce the pressure on himself? And then it came to him. Yes, there was a way. He should impose a counter condition, something that would slow down the god's writing speed and grant him respite. I agree, Lord Ganesha, he bowed respectfully. But if you permit, I have a small condition too. You must understand the meaning of what I dictate before you write it down. Each and every verse of the epic should be clear in your mind. He paused to stroke his beard thoughtfully, then continued. Because what is the point of penning down words whose meaning you have not grasped? Ganesha could not suppress a smile. Vyasa had been wily indeed. But he replied, I am willing to accept your condition. Now tell me when you are ready to begin. Vyasa did not wish to waste any time. If it suits you, in just a few minutes, he said. He beckoned to his disciples. Go, my sons, hurry and bring the writing materials as quickly as you can. The disciple ran off. Within minutes, they were back with scrolls of birch bark, quills, and ink. Then Ganesha sat down comfortably on a low stool. He intoned the sacred word Om sonorously, so it resounded all through the hermitage. Vyasa drew a deep breath and began to chant the epic at breathless speed. He dictated the stories of gods and demons, great sages and powerful kings, of men wise and noble, foolish and evil, women possessing virtue and intelligence, with scheming minds and sharp tongues. He described the heroic deeds while he narrated the accounts of deadly battles as well as acts of cowardice and treachery. He also worked in complex philosophies, the art of living wisely, and the rules of righteous conduct into these stories. Ganesha's pen flew like magic over the scroll, taking it all down without a single pause, barely allowing Vyasa time to breathe or even think. Feeling the pressure, Vyasa then took refuge in a trick. Whenever he felt he could not keep up with Ganesha, he would compose difficult pieces of verse. Thus, passages packed with subtle shades of meaning, complex words in which the slightest of change of stress on one syllable could alter the interpretation altogether. Even the all knowing Ganesha had to stop and think, and in the meantime, Vyasa got the respite he needed. While Ganesha halted to deliberate, Vyasa quickly composed a few more verses. The elephant headed god, however, was eager to complete this task as soon as possible. He did not want even a minute's delay. In a matter of time, it became a race between the two, whether Vyasa could recite faster or Ganesha could write quicker. And then it happened. As Ganesha was writing at breakneck speed, his pen broke. But the god was not one to be deterred by such an obstacle. Looking around for the first pointed object available, he found it. It was his own tusk. Without hesitating for a second, he grasped his left tusk and snapped it off the tip. He then dipped it into ink and continued to write. So, this is how Ganesha lost his tusk. He sacrificed it in his quest to write the Mahabharata, or Jaya as the original work was known, as fast as possible. And at such super speed, the longest epic in the world, 100 stanzas in verse, was written. Dictated by one of the most learned sages, Vedvyasa, and transcribed by the god of auspicious beginnings, Lord Ganesha himself. And that is where chapter 1 ends. I hope you had a good time listening to the story of how the Mahabharata was written. This has been Shru. Thank you for listening.